Alora used to teach me English. She is only 1 year older than me. We are in the same age group. She is now teaching English in France. I invited her to have an online chat with me. The topic remained as the function of the social media. Out of great kindness and generosity, she asked her colleague Sarah to join the discussion. Sarah is from the US. Last year, she graduated as a BA student of psychology.
Um, I normally use Instagram because it is good as an artist because it's very visual. So it functions well for me as an artist. And Facebook sometimes I use for groups, but there's more like spam on Facebook. Definitely being able to see the faces of the people I love helps sometimes, but sometimes makes it worse because you want to be with them so much. Yes. But yeah, a lot of emotional support. I was doing a lot of group calls, so where all friends can get together, we can all talk together, and peer support, I guess. I normally use Instagram. I feel like it's one of the more diverse platforms, whereas like TikTok is pretty much just videos and Twitter is just text. Instagram is kind of a mixture of all of them, and so it's just my personal preference. And then I also use Snapchat a little bit more to like message my friends. The pandemic first started, I was finishing my last year of university. And so that was a lot of shock and bewilderment that they canceled kind of like the second half of our spring semester. And so that was very shocking because none of us really thought that it was that serious. And so that was super shocking. Definitely a little bit of panic because everything that you've kind of planned out to do after you graduate university was up in the air. Like you had no idea if it would be canceled, if anything was going to happen. It was really difficult to make plans. And so that was a little bit difficult. And so that kind of melted into a burnout as well when you get super stressed out about it. And then after that, I feel like there's definitely been stages of hope throughout. And then again, kind of stages of like let down when things get a little bit worse. But now I feel like we're inching towards recovery, maybe. So, and advice. Yeah. So I think on Instagram, you see a lot of infographics with very simple ways of translating the information, what's happening in an area.
I listened to their words repeatedly.
Another situation of information is, where you can donate. So
I met a man who invented the tweet. He used to do a comic return, a comic show. He'd get up and make people laugh. One of the things he laughed with is he had a paper, like printed paper, and he called it the Daily Tweet, which was the name of the paper. And when he opened it up, bird feathers used to, because tweet is what the birds do.
Yeah.
We got early warning of it through some of the social media, the YouTube stuff that was coming out of some of the Westerners that were living in China. And they were reporting the fact that this virus was taking off before the government acknowledged it. And they were saying, look, this is serious. And I was watching what was going on there. So at that point, we knew something big was happening. I was trying to warn my management that it hasn't come here yet, but it's likely to become a pandemic. And there were one or two colleagues that said, yeah, we agree. But most of them said, oh, well, we'll wait and see. And of course it did. But, people and the government and colleagues, they're not as aware as maybe I was. I'm not saying I'm clever or anything, but you take the trouble to find out. And once you do find out, then you can put in place the appropriate measures to look after yourself, because the government wasn't looking after us. 1,200 people a day dying.
I think it helps because I can see other people and I can see that it's not just me who is like
not that I'm going through such a hard time, but more at the beginning when it was very difficult and very confusing, it was helpful to see that other people felt similarly confused and were going through a difficult time, or they were also at home with their parents when they were supposed to be somewhere else, or like it kind of helped in that camaraderie sense. I think that was probably the most helpful. It also helped keep me up to date. I feel like all of the information that, like all of the official COVID information from the government that I see is through Instagram. Like I don't regularly check the government website. It's usually through social media. And so that was helpful, I guess, in like stabilizing me throughout.
Most attention arresting for me in terms of COVID was videos. Just seeing like there was loads of videos in hospitals, like seeing the panic and stuff. I think that was the most shocking at first. And then, because it shocks you, you're like, wow, this is really happening. And then, as I mentioned before, like the infographics to this very simple information that you can just quickly digest.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been especially helpful to me has been the CDC's Instagram account, the Center for Disease and Control in the United States. And they're kind of like our head honcho who makes all the decisions for the disease in the US. And so that was very helpful that we could see what their recommendations were, like immediately afterwards they would post them. And I feel like that was situationally very helpful. Also,
for instance, I've got a friend in Canada, a Chinese friend in Vancouver. So he calls me about once a month on WeChat to check in, see how I am, make sure I'm still alive. And so we catch up and I say, well, how are things going over there? And he says, we've got a very low rate of COVID. It's very, very, not very common. So he said, we still go out to restaurants and, we go out for walks. We're careful, but, it's not spreading as bad as what it was here in the UK. So I said, well, here in the UK, back in last March, April time, people were dying at the rate of 1,275 a day, per day. And if you think, when the aeroplanes crashed into the Twin Towers in New York, just over 3,000 people died. And that was like a huge, huge big event, and everybody was horrified. Well, that was happening in the UK every 2 days.
It was sobering to find out that very fit, relatively young people were catching it and dying within days.
When I was saying, and I could see my friends in different countries acting differently at the beginning, my friend in Italy, that really changed my behaviour, because I was like, okay, I have to take this seriously now, even though everyone around me is not not taking it seriously, but not being as strict as they were in Italy. So from seeing that helped me, because then I would take more health precautions, get sanitizer, get masks.
I think it's shifted. I think at the beginning it was a lot of videos, because it kind of helped put in perspective exactly what was happening around the world. If it hadn't, especially since it kind of hit the US a little bit later than it did everyone else. And so that really was very powerful to see those videos.
I think it was just seeing the empty streets, seeing everyone shut inside, and because I think they went into lockdown a week before France. So I remember my friend talking to me, and he was saying, it's been 6 days, I'm going crazy.
I very often was pinching myself to say, well, look, Nigel, you feel okay, you don't feel vulnerable, but people are dying, so be careful.
Personally, I prefer the picture plus some text. I don't think the video one would be my preference.
Mm-hmm. But I think now, having been going through this pandemic for about a year or so, now it's more text for me, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of conflicting information, and so I'd rather see big text, what is the important thing, when can I leave my house today, and when do I have to stay home, and then that's good. Mm-hmm. And so now I feel like it's big text that really grabs my attention to kind of help filter through.
Yeah. If you believe social media, you may end up being really worried all the time. But if you find out the facts, the proper facts from the experts who know what they're talking about, then you know how to deal with COVID. And basically, I found out that COVID is an airborne transmission mainly, and close transmission, and particularly when there's a lot of people in a room with poor ventilation, then the virus intensity builds up, and that's when you can spread it. So once you understand that, you avoid those situations, don't you? Don't go into crowded places. Always go in the fresh air if you're going to meet people, and then you won't catch it.
I definitely did have some panic, probably more about my friends and family, because I was in a really nice situation. I was in France, in this town in France, not like in London. So I had panic about that. Yeah, and it came in waves. And I think that was due to the information I was getting on social media. So, in fact, I think the best thing to help me with my panic was to not look at my phone.
A little bit of it is kind of like peer pressure. I know that I've had a lot of friends who maybe wanted to go out to a restaurant or wanted to go out to like a bar or wanted to group together in friends and then didn't, because they know that if other people saw them doing that on social media, that they might get upset and ask like, why are you doing this? Why are you going out? And so I think, honestly, the peer pressure of social media kind of influenced my health behavior a little bit, that like, oh, I really shouldn't do this. Like if other friends saw me doing this, I know that they know it's irresponsible. I know it's irresponsible. Sure, I should stay home. And so I think that changed my health behavior a little bit.
I haven't been able to make the long runs to visit people that unfortunately, most of my good friends are far away, and my two children are far away. I did miss the local cafe not being open, except for takeaway. I like to go and eat there at least once or twice a week, because it's what supplements the light diet that I maintain at home, with one or two decent meals during the week.
Yeah, I follow some accounts that sort of, I guess psychology accounts, and you can sort of understand where your anger's coming from and learn about how you might react to certain information. So yeah, that helps a lot actually. And then seeing everyone in the same situation too is helpful.
Twitter particularly therapeutic. It's because even if the world were to end tomorrow, I could face it knowing that I had told them that it was going to end in a week. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe that now, but I might believe it at some point in the future. And therefore, I could die reasonably okay, knowing that at least I did my best to try to prevent it all being a surprise. Okay? And so that's it. Just being able to have your say, I think, is the best thing about Twitter. Nobody may be listening, nobody may read it, a few people may like it, but the fact is it's there in black and white. You said it, it was you that warned the world that it should have done this rather than that, etc. And I can't say. I mean, we've never had an opportunity to put our opinion out on in the news, so to speak, and it will succeed as to go around the world viral, or it will not. According to
really helped with seeing like Australia and New Zealand and the countries that like really have it under control, or at least it seems they have it under control, but that they can like lift off a lot of their restrictions. That helps me when I feel like kind of panicked about the situation, or angry as well, because it's kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, and that helps me when I feel angry or panicked. But then on the other side of the coin, I feel like social media is a cause for a lot of my like anger and panic, because I see people who are not necessarily being very safe or not being very thoughtful. And so that's kind of angering when like you are trying to stay home and try to stay safe, and then you see other people who just kind of just don't seem not to care. And that's a little frustrating sometimes. So I think that's the moment when like I take a step back and just try to not look at as much.
And sometimes from the social media, I can see them put posts on it and for their daily life. I see what they've been cooking today, and a lot of meals, or they've been meeting other friends, sort of stuff. Yeah. So I know the pandemic situation. It's it's getting better.
And I just remember seeing pictures of everyone washing their fruit and their vegetable in the bath, and just obsessively washing things, which, I mean, I think that's true. I was reading somewhere that Cuba had a vaccine or something. This was really early on, and it was, and America was blocking the Cuban vaccine. I remember I was telling my friends, I was like, Cuba's got a vaccine.
I feel like there's quite a lot of I feel like it's especially difficult with this pandemic because the information evolves, and so it's not necessarily misinformation because at the time that was the best information we had, but 3 months later it's wrong, and so that's kind of a challenge with this pandemic as well. I think I've seen a lot of, as an American citizen, I've seen a lot of what Trump said about it when everything started. That's a lot of misinformation.
Okay, so there is a taxonomy of Donald Trump tweets, and it's a conceptual model of the 4 ways that he tries to control the news agenda. Okay, so would you like me to read them out?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, Donald Trump tries to control the news agenda because he wants to run things his way and get followers and so on. So he uses 4 different methods to control it. One is preemptive framing, second one is diversion, third one is deflection, and the fourth one is a trial balloon. So the preemptive framing is being the first to frame an idea according to how he wants to frame it, not the truth. Second one is diversion, diverting attention from the real issues, particularly when it makes him look bad. The third one is deflection, which is attacking the messenger to change the direction. And he does that, the journalists a lot, he attacks them, doesn't he? Has a go at them personally.
I've seen racist information on social media, not necessarily in relation to COVID. I think that's because I use Instagram a lot, I just follow the accounts I follow. It's not really something something that will just come on my news feed. I would have to sort of search for it.
So far I haven't received any hate mail or anything like that, hate messages.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been lucky, possibly. That could all change, of course.
One of the reasons is the news. Yeah, so the news media, sometimes the kind of reported this and didn't give a good explanation scientifically, rather than they focus on where the source comes from, and it could be the man-made and with no evidence man-made virus, and point to Chinese governments or something that could misleading people and form some kind of hate against the Chinese people. In fact, it's nothing to do with our normal people. Yeah.
I feel like I try to not follow people that would say, post or say those kinds of things, and so usually it doesn't pop up in my feed. However, I've definitely seen people kind of laughing about racist comments that maybe Trump has tweeted or somebody else has tweeted, and so that's kind of borderline. I think to stop the hate messages, I feel like it's less action on the social media platform and more action by the government or in real life of dispelling these myths and prejudices. I feel like it's a work that should be done at a much more basic level than social media. It just happens to leak out on social media. But I think I agree with what Alora said earlier, that reporting accounts, and also I think if people are saying racist things on your content, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit your responsibility. I think it's a little bit your responsibility to message them directly, because a lot of people will be very defensive if you attack them in the comments where everyone can see, but maybe if you approach them in a more one-on-one setting, you can get somewhere with the conversation. So